Hello, everyone. Good evening. I believe that a few more people are joining. Let us give them a little bit of time so that they can also join, and we will get started in a bit. Okay. Right. I can see that more people are joining. Let's give them a little bit of time. Yeah, please. And thank you for waiting. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Let's get started. We cannot afford to delay anymore. And I believe we have enough students. Right. Anyone that is joining, they can, watch the recorded video as well. Fine. The only benefit is if you, I mean, the major benefit is if you join the class in the, within the live event, you'll be able to ask your own doubts, right? So that you get everything clarified within the class itself. Okay. So ensure that you're joining a little early, going on from the next class. All right. So let's begin. I will be sharing my screen and please let me know once it is visible. Okay. Is my screen visible to you all? Okay. Type in yes if it is. And if you are having any issues, please let me know. And also, please confirm whether my audio is all clear. Okay. I can see that it's all good. Right. Let's get started without any delay. And we are going to be learning a few more concepts within the Python programming, right? So what was the last thing that we learned? Yeah, let's open the notebook first with the command Python hyphen n notebook. So this is going to, the command is going to open the Jupyter notebook within our browser, right? And we can just go into the notebook and take a look at what we have done, right? So to do a quick recap, we started off with the date and time libraries that are present within the Python. So which is going to help us to manipulate and also display the dates and times, right? It could be the current date, it could be the date according to the time zone, right? If there is any daylight savings or depending on your the local time. So that is what it is. So it gives you the local time depending on where you live, right? According to the geographical location. And based on that, if you want to take a look at what is the current time and everything, you'll be able to use this, right? And time, it contains a tuple, right? Um, so it is a tuple of 9 values that represents the time. So if we try to print this, you'll be able to see we have the year, the month, the day, the hour, minutes, seconds, the day of the week, the day within the year, and also the whether it is having any daylight savings time. Right? With the help of this, you'll be able to deal with a lot of date and time related um, operations. So we talked a very important aspect about it, right? So it could be like keeping the logs of any account. So what is happening and when exactly this action was performed. So this is called as logging within your application, right? It is also known as keeping an audit trail. So this will be asked by the governing bodies saying that we would like to know the audit trail. Are you maintaining the documentation or the files as such, right? So with the help of this, you'll be able to create that file that is the audit trail file. All right. So next we dealt with the calendar module, right? Where we were able to have a formatted version of a calendar that is of any month of any year. You just have to pass two things. One is the year and the month, and it gives you the calendar, right? And also we did a simple example to understand the features within the calendar library. So there is a direct function which will be able to tell you whether the year is leap year or not, right? So based on the leap year, you'll be able to do some calculations, right, according to that particular year. So that is one of the things. And we also dealt with the time module, where you are having a lot of functionalities within that. We also learned what an epoch time is. That is the number of seconds that has passed from January 1st, 1970, right? So these are the number of seconds that have passed, and you will also be able to convert it, right? Convert epoch time to any date and time format. You can do that as well, right? As long as you have this, the timestamp, which is stored in your database, you'll be able to take it from there and format it according to your requirement, right? So what are the ways that you can format them, right? So you can use a date time formatter where you have different strings. So percent %y will give you year, then percent lowercase m gives you the month, D gives you the day of the month, H gives you the hour, that is the uppercase H, right? And so on. Right? However, that you want to format them, let's say that you want to format them in DDMMYY, right? Or if you go to the Western countries, it will be MMDDYY. First comes the month, then comes the day. Or if you want to have a very easily simple readable format, if you want to know the what day of the week it is, right? So you can do that, right? So that is how human friendly, the date time module can get for you, right? So then, we did a bit of formatting, and also we understood what the sleep function can do, right? With the help of sleep function, you will be able to put your execution at rest, right? You will just say stop for a while before you start executing the rest of the lines, right? So in this case, you have one line of code. It can be n number of lines of code, but after all of those are executed, it is going to sleep. The program is going to sleep for a while, and it is going to wake up to do the rest of the execution, like this. So there will be a delay of 5 seconds. So it can be used in various formats. Let's say that you want to interact with the with your system when you're trying to do some testing, right? So imagine that you have a form that requires your username and password and so on, right? And you have a submit button. So after you click on the submit button by inputting the form values, what can happen? It may log you into the system, or it may do any kind of operation, right? It is just going to submit the form. But it is going to take some time, some amount of time to submit that form, correct? Right? I hope you all agree with me on that. So if you want to automate something after the form submission, you want to do something else, you have to put your program at sleep to give it some wait time. Say I'll say take about 2 seconds of waiting time. After that, start executing the rest of the operations that you want to do. So why do I want to do this? A simple example can be, without this sleep function, you make the submission, and then you are going to start executing the automation, other rest of the automation, right? If you do not give any gap here, this automation code will be run before the full submission is done. And this may have some issues. Your automation can go through some issues. Maybe because the screen is not loaded, maybe the required data is not loaded onto the screen, right? So it could be so many cases. So this is one of the examples that we can have where you may use the sleep, okay, to give it some rest and so that the other operations are completed. Okay, so that's about the sleep function, and it takes the number of seconds. right? And we also got an interesting question. How can we pass the minutes or the hours, right? So it is just as simple as convert your seconds into your minutes and then also your hours, right? You are going to get that value and just pass it as number of seconds, right? So it is all about within Python or any other programming, certain functions will take the particular units, right? In some cases, certain functions will take them in seconds. Some of them can take it in microseconds, right? Some of them can take it in minutes, depending on what kind of functions they are. So all of those will be available within your documentation. See, just like how we learned the sleep functionality, there will be other functions which will have its own unit, right? So this is in seconds. It is so other functions can have it in minutes or any other unit. It is defined by the user who have created by the created the library. That's it. So we also looked at one of the random questions: what is div mod and how it works, right? Then the most important part of any programming language is functions. So why do we write the functions? It is to define a block of code which can be executed as many number of times that we want, right? As you know, why do you want to run it as many times as you want? We want to make it reusable. Instead of writing n number of lines for n number of use cases, you're going to write one function and make it run for n number of use cases, right? Call the same function, just pass the different arguments, right? So here, this is called as a parameter, right? And this is called as an argument. So parameters are the ones which will be defined within a function, and arguments are the ones which will be sent into the function during the function call. So you have to remember this really well because these are the kind of questions that may be asked within your interviews. Okay. I hope everyone is still on the same page. The reason why I'm emphasizing on the previous uh, concepts is these are the important ones, and specifically functions are very important. Okay, and why we are emphasizing on functions is so you just have to understand how a function works. Based on that, you can write your own set of lines of code, right? So that is what a function is. So function is nothing but a block of code where you can write your own custom code to solve any business problems. Okay, right. So that is about the arguments and the parameter, right? We also understood what do we mean by pass by object reference on, and that is also known by the call by object reference, right? So this is where the entire reference of the variable is passed, like this, and it is able to modify that original argument itself, right? And then we also understood what do we mean by the pass by value, right? You are just going to pass the value like this. In this case, since number, that is your integer, is not a mutable type of uh, entity, it will be completely replaced, right? So therefore, both the values will remain the same. The original value, even after the reassignment, remains the same in this case, right? So anyone who does not understand what we just talked about, uh, it is best if you go through the previous class so that you can understand the context. All right. So next we were able to write a simple function which can return the value, right? The importance of the return function is it will pass the value back into your the function, that is the where the function is called. so that you can take that value and reuse it. You can utilize that value anywhere, right? So next is the lambda functions. Lambda functions are the ones that are the shorthand notations of any functions, which go by the lambda keyword and takes in the arguments like this with the comma separation, and then comes the colon with the expression. You can write any expression pertaining to your arguments, or the in this case it is the parameter, right? So we did a few examples of that, right? And after that, we also understood what are arguments and keyword arguments. So arguments are the ones which do not contain any key value pairs, right? In this case, there are no keys. It is just the values, and they are mostly uh, positional, right? So based on the position, the value is taken. So if you switch these two, the value will be taken according to the position. Then we have the keyword arguments where you get a key value pairs, like it is like a dictionary. In this case, the arguments will be in the type of a tuple, right? But keywords will have a dictionary because within the dictionary, you'll be able to say key value pairs. So depending on what your data looks like, the data structure is chosen. Okay, right. So that is about what we did in the last class. We also, yeah, this is one thing I forgot. It is about the default parameter. If there is no value which is passed in that position, it is just going to take the default value like this. Okay, right. So let's move on to the next concept. That is the scope of the variable, right? What do we mean by the scope, right? So we can write our variables in different parts of our program, and based on where we have written the variable, we will be able to access the value there, right? So let us understand with a simple example of both global variables and local variables. So these are the two types that we have in this, right? So let's create a variable called uh, global var, and assign it some value, right? And then let us write a function. Function goes by def, and then function name, my function, and I can write some local variables in this. So I'll define one more variable, local var equals to 5. So this is our local variable now, and this becomes our global variable. Okay. So next, let us try to print them. Print. First, let's print the local variable, and then let's also print the global variable. Okay. And after this, we are going to call the function, right? Like my function. And then after that, let us again print the uh, local and global variable. But before that, let's just execute the. So it is able to print both 5 and 10. This is one of the major, best practices is what I would like to say. When you're printing any variable, it is always best if you try to have some reference to that print statement. See, here I can see two values, 5 and 10. With the number of variables, I can understand which one is global and which one is local. So 5 is local and 10 is global. Okay. It could be A, B, and C also. But what if there are n number of variables? Could be like 5 or 10 or 15 or more than that, right? How are you going to understand which value is belonging to what variable? Therefore, always add a simple string, next to your variable. A string can be as simple as it is all about identifying. for you, right? It is a way of debugging. So therefore, I'll just call this as local variable, right? I'll provide a string called local variable. And then similarly, I'll provide another string called global variable. Okay, you can say local var and then provide a colon so that you can have some proper formatting like this, right? So that is one of the best practices that can exist when you're debugging. I can see that many of the people will just print their variables like this. You can, certainly you can, but when your when your code is going to grow, and it is definitely going to grow, you will be very much confused and you will not be able to debug, right? You are going to be stuck in that cycle till you figure out which variable points to which value. Anyway, so let's move on to the next one. And we can see that here it is able to print local variable, which is declared within the my function, right? And then global variable, which is declared outside the my function. Then let's print a couple of more. And let's use the same print statements. Okay, so I'll just say local var on the inside, because uh, if we don't do that, what happens? You'll not be able to identify what's happening, right? So I'll use this. So inside and outside. Okay. So let's try to run this, right? Maybe you would have figured out what is going to be the outcome, right? So let's clarify this. So when we run this particular code, what happens is it is able to print the statements which are inside the function. But when we are trying to print them outside, it is throwing some sort of error, right? The reason for this is local variable. You can also see what the error is. It says local variable or local var is not defined. The reason behind that is here local var is within your my function, and global var is outside your my function. Therefore, imagine a simple bracket, a flower bracket or something, which is going to define your range or the scope. This is just for your imagination. It doesn't exist in Python programming. So my function has uh, a scope of this entire area, right? So from here to here, it is all my function, right? Similarly, if you want to define the scope of the outside function, outside of this function, you can say the scope is something like this. Okay, I'll just add this also. So this is called as the local scope because, can you guys hear me? Okay, I can see one message saying that the voice is not proper. Okay, okay. In that case, seems fine. Yasmin, can you please check your network? I can see a lot of yeses there. Everything is fine. All right. So I was saying that this is called as the local scope because anything that you write within this, any variable that you declare within this function is limited to only this function because and this same variable cannot be accessed outside. But the other way around is this scope, which is called as the global scope, right? Sorry, this is not the comment. Right. So this is the global scope and this is the local scope. Okay. So whatever is in the global scope, See, global means, it exists everywhere, right? You can access it anywhere. So anything that has a global scope can be accessed within any other local scopes also. But the same is not possible when it comes to local scoped variables. Local scope cannot become global scope. So one local scope cannot access the other local scope, right? You may have another function like this, say my function 2. So you may define another local variable called 15. So this local variable will not be accessible by this function. So because both the functions are of different scope, and it is exactly limited to this brackets, the imaginary brackets that we can see. Okay, but global scope is not like that. So you can access this global variable in this function or any other function that you can write. Okay, I hope you guys understood the concept, right? So that is the main thing for now, understanding the concept. So I'll just remove these imaginary the basis, because it is going to cause issues later, because that is not part of your Python syntax. Okay. So if I run this, it says local var is not defined. So that is because I'll remove this another function as well. Okay. So this was our initial code. That is because local var is within a function and it is limited to this. But if I comment this out and run this, see again it says global var, that is outside the function, is still accessible because it is in the global scope. Okay. So similarly, if you define any other function and try to access it outside, the variables outside, it won't be accessible. Okay. So therefore, what it means, the main agenda of this concept is, when you're declaring your variables, you have to be careful, right? So you can't declare your variable anywhere and try to access it anywhere else. So one of the examples for that is, let's take the same thing. Okay, call them as before that I have to restart the kernel to remove all my variables. So if I do that, this another function will not be required. So I'll have another print statement. So local var before uh, before declaring or before declaration. So when I try to run this, it throws an error because local variable local var is referenced before the assignment. So what it means, I have my variable defined here, but I'm trying to access it before that. So a line before the declaration or the definition. So position of your variable also matters, where you are going to declare it. So if I declare it here, you can use in any other line below that, any other line below this, not above it. So that is also the scope. So that is the syntactical scope. Okay, I hope this concept is clear. That is on the global and local variables. If yes, just type in Y, and so that we can move on to the next topic. I believe that it was simple as well. Okay, good, good. Uh, all of you are on the same page. Good to hear. Right. Anyone has any confusion in this particular topic? If yes, please ask this, because this is obviously one of the core concepts. Without this, you will not be able to write your custom functions also. Okay. Perfect. Seems like everyone has got an understanding. So let's move on to the next topic, right? It will be a little bit, uh, you know, complex, okay? But I'm going to make it simple for you, as simple as possible, okay? So this is the concept of decorators. Keyword arcs, as I said, it see I already did a repeat within this class, so just go back to this video and take a look at it. It is going to be an easy topic. It is nothing but instead of passing arguments like this, we are going to pass arguments with a key, key and a value. These are the keys. Okay, right. Chetan, I believe you also have a question. Let me know before I move on to the next one. Okay. Please type your question. I'm going to address it later then. Right. So the next topic I was talking about is the decorators. Right. Decorators. It is one of the a powerful way of writing a function. That is not exactly writing a function, but it is a powerful way to modify the behavior of your function. Right. Take one function and alter the behavior of it. Right. So where it can be used. For example, you can say that it can be used in logging, that is information logging, right? Or it can be used in authentication and a bunch of other functionalities, right? So let us write a simple example for this, where we are going to define a decorator, right? A wrapper function within the decorator, and also call that, right? So it starts with writing any other, just another function. So definition of a function, my my decorator, and it takes a function as an argument, right? That is within the parameter, we'll be passing a function. And within this function, you are going to define another function, and let's call it as wrapper function, which is going to act within this function, right? So again, this can take in their own parameters depending on how you're going to use it, right? So let's print something. Print, I'll just say, some message before calling our function, calling the actual function, right? And then after that, we can actually call the function. So whichever the function that we are passing here, right? Function. And again, it is going to take some parameters if required. Okay, then we are going to return this function. So return cannot be in the same indentation. So return wrapper. So when you do this, the wrapper function will be returned to your my decorator. Okay, so then let's have a simple function again defined. Say hi, right? Just one moment. All right, so we have a say hi function, and it is going to print hi. And then how do we call it? Just call the function name, right? So when you do this, what it does, it just says hi. Okay. But when you pair it with the decorator, Okay, decorator is nothing but another function which you can use to modify the behavior of your existing functions, right? So how do you uh, declare this? Is with the at the rate symbol and call your decorator. And what is the decorator? It is my decorator. Okay. So when you do this and execute this function, you can see that I just executed this say hi, but it was able to call this that is within the wrapper as well, and then call the function that is say hi. Okay, so that is how a decorator can be used. Okay, so without this, I'll just comment this out with the hash, and when I run this, there is no print statement from the wrapper. Okay, wrapper is within the decorator. Okay, decorator is having some functionality. So that functionality is nothing but a simple print function, right? So when you do this, a decorator, when you add the decorator again, it is going to print the that is, it is going to execute the decorator function first, and then call uh, your actual function within the wrapper. Okay. My decorator is not exactly a keyword. It can be anything else, right? It is just a function name like this. Okay. It's not exactly a keyword. But decorators are defined using the at the rate symbol. Okay. Right. So in this case, how do we modify this to understand this functionality better? Right. I said it can be used for logging, right? Logging some sort of information, right? Or you can say it can be used for some repeated, uh, you know, functionality. So in this case, what I'm going to do is convert it into a simple chat format. In a chat, you can see that you are going to type in a message, but you can see the when the chat message was sent by default, right? What you are going to do is you are just going to send the message, but the other functionality will be depending on the time. It is going to append the string saying that this chat was sent at so and so time. All right. So how we can modify this, right? First is you can import time from, sorry, import time, and then also let us import the date time, right? Uh, from date time, import date time as well, right? So in this, what we can do is we can pass a message. So instead of just saying hi, I'll say uh, send message, changing the function itself. Okay. Then pass an actual message into this. So this is the parameter. Then what you are going to do, instead of printing hi, you are going to print the message directly. Okay, that is taken from your parameter itself. Now, how this message is going to be able to come into the function, that is through the function call, right? That is when you're invoking the function. So instead of just sending a blank argument, you can say hi or hello or any other message that you want, right? So that is what we did now. And within your wrapper function, you'll have to pass the message and also within this function, because this parameter has to reach this. Therefore, you are going to be passing the message in both the wrapper and the function. That is the requirement in this case. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll just say uh, message sent at and provide the actual time. That is, how do you take that time? It is through a variable. You can take a variable, current time is using the date time. You'll say now, right? Date time dot now, and you are going to format it. So using the string format time, strf time. So within this, you are going to pass the actual formatting. So what would that be? Let's say, year, then month, and also the day. So percent n and your percent d. And you'll say, what is the actual time? Hour, then percent m is going to give you the minute, and then percent s, right? So if you recall the previous concepts that we did, you'll be able to write this according to your required format. Then I'm just going to say message sent at, use this variable. Okay, so this is not a keyword. In this case, it can be any function. Okay, and you can see which is a keyword and which is not, depending on the color. So def is a keyword, import is a keyword, from is a keyword, right? So those can't be used. Okay, so message sent at, sorry, you'll have to do it after the comma, or you can just use the f string. So f string to format it, current time, right? Um, all right, so then we have a function, and then the wrapper is being returned. So now let us execute this. It says message sent at, so and so date and so time. 1956 is 7:56. Okay. Then I'm going to send one more message in this case. Right. Hi, how are you doing? And now when you send this, what happens? By default, it is going to print your string. And second thing is, it is also going to take the current time and print that also, saying that message sent at so and so time, right? So here it says message sent at 1956, and this is 1957, that is 7:57 and 25th second. Okay, so I hope this is clear, because the main thing that we are talking about is how you can modify the behavior of your function. So our function is just this. So using a decorator, you can modify the behavior however you want. Okay. So with this, you will be able to execute things before and also after, right? So before this and after this also, after the function execution as well. Okay. Right. So that is what the decorator does. So what I'm going to suggest is go through the decorator concept and try to execute your own functions, right? Execute your own methods. Okay. So with the help of this, you'll be able to understand it much, much better. All right. So the same decorator can be used with other functions also, right? So how do you do that? Just define your function, my function, any other function, right? And that function can just return something or print something or do any computation, anything that you want, right? So in that case, you just have to add the decorator like this at my decorator, right? So I'll just say my custom function and print this using the function call. Okay. Um, yeah, in this case, it also requires some message. I'll pass the message again, and it can be anything. It's like this. See, my custom function, it can be literally anything, but it is going to derive, your decorator function as well, right? So the functionalities can be derived and it can be customized also, depending on how you want your program to behave. Okay, so this can be used in testing. I can see that one of you mentioned pre-test, right? So that can be used in testing as well, right? Here, depending on how you want your program to behave. All right. So I hope the decorators are clear, right? Why function is called within the wrapper function is because you want this to be executed. Uh, you know, this is another way of passing this function within this, right? So that it can execute the wrapper function first and then call your other function, your custom function, anything that you want. So in this case, the function will be send message because my decorator is taking send message and passing it as the function. And in this case, your decorator is taking this my function, that is another function, and passing it within this parameter. Okay. Every time the function is not going to be the same, depending on your where your decorator is defined and defined within what function depends on that. Okay. So that is why we are just using this as a placeholder. Yes, you need to have a wrapper function, right? Wrapper function is nothing but your custom function. Any function, it can again be ABC also. Okay, it is nothing but your function name. I just called it as wrapper so that we can understand the context better. And the function has to be returned to your decorator so that wherever your decorator is listed, on top of what function, whatever the function that you have, it can execute that function without any hassle. Okay. So that is why we have the decorators so that you can customize the behavior of your functions. All right. Any other questions? Yes, certainly. Because instead of decorator, can we write at wrapper? Definitely. Because as I said, this is not exactly a keyword. It can be ABCD also, right? That's how it works. Okay. So in this case, we need to understand what it is. This is a decorator. You will understand it. I mean, you will not have any issues when you're doing it all by yourself, right? So for this example, you need to understand which one is the decorator. So that is why we have the keywords like this. Not the keywords. It is more of a function names or the variable names like that. Okay. Uh, does it mean we can access with the help of the at the rate symbol? Yes. So you can access it with this symbol, your decorator functions. Correct. Yes, any function can be your decorator. As long as you're passing another function into this, like this, within this function, you have written another function which is passing another, which is passing another function through the decorator, my decorator. All right. Yes, it sort of works as a function call. But yeah, in this case, it can be customized. So function call can be you write a function and call the same function, right? But in this case, you are calling different functions, not just one function. Along with your decorator, you are calling different set of functions, and they can be custom to your requirement. All right, let's move on to the next one. I can see an image being passed. Import calendar, no module name calendar. See you can see that the spelling of calendar is incorrect. Calendar. Okay, so just change the the keyword there, calendar, with an AR, Roja, and you will be able to remove the error what you have. That will be gone. Okay, so I hope this is clear so that we can move on to the next topic. Yeah. But by the way, before moving on to the next one, we are going to take a short break. Okay, take a, quick 5 minute break, and we will be back onto the rest of the topics. Okay, right. All right, I believe everyone is back. If yes, please respond with a simple yes, and we can get started. Perfect. Okay. So we learned about how to deal with the decorators. So I want you guys to try something with it. Okay. So let's move on to the next topic. So in this, we are going to learn about what a recursion is, right? So any of you have heard what, this term recursion? Please type in Y if you have. Recursion. 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 So have you heard of it? All right. Seems like you all have a fair understanding of it. Function that calls itself. Good. Looping anything. Okay, it's one of the ways how we loop through something, but that's not exactly recursion. All right. Recursion is a technique in programming where a function calls itself to solve a problem, right? So you have a function, right? So what happens in this case is uh, you just call a function. Okay, this is your function definition. Something or do anything within this function. But what it does is it calls a function again within itself. So when you do this, what happens? You just call the function once, and within the function definition, there is a line which is going to call this function one more time. Now the control goes back to this function, and from the beginning, it starts executing again, right? So that's what a recursion is. Okay, it is one of the smart ways of programming, and a simple advice from me is if you have to impress your hiring manager, use recursion, right? It is not exactly suggested that you use recursion every time, but generally, if you're able to solve a problem with recursion, it means that you have a very good grip on your programming knowledge. Okay, people are actually impressed when you're writing the recursion methods. Okay, voice is breaking, sir. Is it the same for everyone? If yes, please let me know so that I can rectify it. Okay, no, it's proper. Yeah, you'll have to check your network, Shreyanka. Okay. Yes. Why don't we do, the factorial of a number, right? Okay. Does anyone know what factorial of something is? Right. Factorial within your math concept. If yes, just type in yes so that I can actually do the program part and not talk about the factorial. Okay. Right. I can see a lot of yeses, which is good. Perfect. So let's define a function, call it factorial, right? And factorial is going to take a simple number, right? Call it as n. Okay. So within that, we are going to write a few lines of code so that we can do the recursion through it. Okay. So first we are going to check if n is equal to 0. If it is 0, it just returns 1. Okay. Then else, what do you have to return? That is, factorial is n into n minus 1 factorial into n minus 2, and that is so on, right? n into n minus 1 into n minus 2 into n minus 3 till the list is exhausted. Okay, so return n into, instead of n minus 1, what we are going to do is call the function again, factorial of n minus 1. Okay, and what we are going to do now is just call the function that is factorial. Factorial of n. N is going to be anything. Let's say 3. See, it prints 6 in this case. Okay, so next, let's say that you want to get the factorial of 5. Gives you 120 directly, correct? You did not even have to use your mathematical function in this. Did we use any import math? Anything? Nothing, right? There is no math library used in this, but we are able to find the factorial of a number with a simple coding, right? It is simple yet an elegant solution for your factorial, right? Do you guys agree with me or not? All right. So that's how recursion works. So what is recursion again? It is a way of calling a function within the same function so that you can arrive at a solution, right? So that is about recursion. And when you master recursion, you can say that you have mastered pretty much of coding. So generally recursion can be a little tricky. In this case, you may wonder how this exactly works, correct? But what we are trying to do in this case is, you are calling within the same function. You are just using the function call to change the value. So in this case, it changes to n into factorial of n minus 1 is what? So I'm just talking about this. N into factorial of n minus 1 does what? It passes n into the function n minus, in this case, n is n minus 1. Okay, so let's say 5. Yeah, 1 second. So I'll just change this from n to 5. Okay, so then factorial of n minus 1 does what? It goes into this, n becomes n minus 1, that is 4, right? Then it is not 0. If it is 0, it just returns 1. Else it goes into the else condition. It just says again n, right? So n is, in this case, n minus 1 is 4. Okay, then it takes in this into consideration, then star, again factorial of n minus 1, calls this function again. So n minus 1 is 4 minus 1. So this becomes n is 3. 3 is equal to 0? No. Goes into else condition and then again returns n into factorial of n minus 1. So which is that? N is, in this case, 3 into factorial of n minus 1. So factorial of n minus 1 means you have to go back to the function execution again. So the n is not equal to 0, goes to else, returns n into factorial of n minus 1, which in this case, it is 2, right? And does the same thing till it reaches, that is 0, right? In this case, if it reaches 0, it just returns 1. Okay, so then it becomes 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, right? So the same thing can be executed for any number like this. See how big a number is factorial of 1000, right? Very, very big. Let's just say 150, and it is still big. Just take a simple number like this, and you'll be able to properly quantify it. Okay. So how we were able to solve the factorial problem with simple recursion, right? So it is a very elegant method of solving your problems. Okay. So that's about recursion. Any questions about the concept in recursion? Okay. No questions. All right. All clear then. Good. So let us move on to uh, some of the built-in functions that exist in Python, that is to perform operations on the data that we have generally. And what we are going to learn in this case is map, reduce, and then filter. So these are the three different inbuilt or the built-in functions. Okay. So map is denoted by a map function like this, right? Then you have reduce, and then same goes with the filter, right? So let's understand this better individually. So the map function, it applies, a given function. Let's say, whichever function that we have given to each item of an iterable. Example, it could be a list, okay, and it returns a new iterable with the results. So I know that it may be a little bit confusing as to what I'm saying, right? So first thing is it applies a given function. It could be any given function to each of the items of an iterable or your, in this case, a list, right? Let's say you have a set of numbers like this, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So you want to print the square of all these numbers. Okay. So in order to do that, you can just use the map function. Okay. So how do we do it? Just define your function. What is the function that you want? I'll call it square. Okay. And pass a value into it. And how do I return the square of it? Return x with two asterisks and then just pass 2. Okay. So this gives x squared. Okay. So that is what this function is going to do. And with the help of the map function, what we are going to do, let's take another variable, squared numbers. Okay. And we are going to pair it with the list function. I'll tell you why in a minute. So list of map. Okay. Map takes two things. Okay. First is it is going to take the function. What is the function that has to be applied? So in this case, what is the function? Square. And then the second parameter is it takes the iterable, right? What is, where to apply this function, on what to apply this function on. Okay. So where do we want to apply this? It is on the numbers. Okay. So then when you execute this and look for the squared numbers, it is going to give the actual squares of this list, the numbers list. Okay. You can see that 1 squared is 1, then 2 squared, 4, then so on with 3, 4, and 5, which gives 9, 16, and 25. Okay. So what happened here is we were able to map a function and map it against each element of your list, each element of your iterable. So this is our iterable where you can iterate through a list of items or a list of elements. Therefore, using this, you are able to apply a function to it. Which function is it? It is the square. So square does what? It is just going to return the square of any past value. Okay, in each iteration, it is going to pass the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. That is till the nth value. Okay, for each of them, what function is going to be applied? That is square. So it is mapping this function with these numbers and returning them as a list. Okay, so why do I have this list? Why can't we just do a map? Is when we run this, you can see that it just gives some sort of a location, a hex value kind of. But we are not really interested in that. What we intend to do is we intend to convert it into a list of items. So how do we convert anything into a list? That is list of something, right? Similar to list, we have tuple of something, right? So similarly, I just use the list function here. So change it into a list, right? It is the typecasting, correct? Okay. So in this case, your squared numbers will be converted into a list of numbers whose value has been changed to their squares. Okay. Similarly, this map function can be used for any other feature, right? So you want to do some conversion. Could be, let's say that you have a list of strings and you want to capitalize them, right? So a list of strings, like you may have some list like this. And so on. And you want to capitalize them. Let's say that these are the names: Harry, Tom, and say Drake. So since these are names of people, generally, how do you write them? You capitalize the first letter every time, right? So how do you capitalize it? You will have to, without a looping, you'll have to take each of them individually and then change the capitalization. Okay. With the simple use of a map function, how we can do it. And in this case, I'm going to combine it with a lambda function. All right, so let's do that. So let's have a list of names, right? So Henry, say Harry, uh, Tom, and could be anything. Okay. Next, what we can do is taking this list, you are going to capitalize them. Okay, so you have these names. Let's take another variable to store all your capitalized information. Capitalized names. Okay. Then what we are going to do is we are going to map with a function. What is our function going to be in this case? A lambda function. Okay. A lambda function which takes in a parameter. It takes in what? Name. Okay. So in this case, I can just use name. Okay. And then your expression, your function expression. What can be the expression? Name dot capitalize. Okay. So this becomes our function now, similar to square, which is again a function, user-defined function in this case. But this entire thing becomes a function, which is written in a simple single line. The single line functions are the anonymous functions, or popularly known as lambda functions. So lambda function. And then what do you want to apply this function on? Names, right? That is the set of or the list of names that you have. Then I'm going to print this, right? And it says map at so and so location. You can't really see the proper formatting. And then I'm going to change it into a list because a map is going to produce a new list. Okay. So since it produces new iterables, it no, it uses a list format. And you can see that all of them have been capitalized. So the first letter of the name is capital, right? I hope you all understood this. This is a way how we can use the map function to, uh, you know, perform different set of operations. And it is quite easy also, right? You have a list of things on which you have some or the other operations to be done, right? What is the operation that you are going to define in your first parameter? That is the function, okay, which is defined with the map function, right? Is this clear? Are there any questions? Okay, so return x squared, right? 4 squared, squares 16 to print. I actually did not understand what you meant by that. If there is any other way that you can convey that, it will be helpful. How lambda works, we covered that in the previous class, Pankaj. You can take a look at it. All right. Any other questions? Describe recursion tree. Okay, that is a different concept altogether. That is not exactly the one that we talked about in this recursion, right? That is not similar to your recursion tree, although recursion tree uses recursion as the concept. Okay, that's another node and tree problem. Any other questions, relevant questions, please? Roja, I can see that you have pasted some sort of screenshot, although I do not have any understanding of what that means. Just let me know what is the issue and we can probably take it forward from there. See, oh, okay, I think I understand. You are trying to print the number. You just have to do a left indent, right? The print number statement within your last line is after the continue, right? It should be in the same line as your if, then your numbers can be print. Yes, there is no error exactly. It is just that your print statement is in the wrong, uh, you know, wrong indentation block. Yes, you will have assessment for all of these, Sai Vasu. Okay. In this case, title versus capitalize, Bhargavi. What it can do is see capitalize can capitalize the first character of any string, right? Generally, the first character itself, right? But with title, title case, all of these can be capitalized. N, then C and F, all of them will be capitalized. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next concept. If map functionality is clear, next is the reduce. Okay, so the similar to map, we have reduce, which is used to apply a function again of two arguments, similar to your map function, right? But what this does is it reduces it to a single value. Eventually, it reduces everything to a single value. Okay, let's look at a simple example. In order to do the reduce, you have to, uh, you know, use this reduce function similar to the map function. All right, so let's do that. Let's say add, and it takes x comma y. Okay, any two variables, and it just returns return x plus 2y. Right. So I've taken a very simple example so that you can understand, the concept. So similar to this, let's have a list of numbers again. Okay, which is written outside the function. As you can see, it is not inside like your return statement. Okay, and then let's take result. Result is equal to a reduce of, it takes again two parameters, uh, add, that is the function, and then the list, which is the numbers. So first parameter is functionality. Second is the list of things that you want to work on. Generally, this will be used in an iterable format, right, where you have a list of things. Okay, so reduce and then add, comma, numbers. Add is the function and numbers is the iterable. Okay, so when we look at result now, it throws an error saying the result, that is reduce, is not defined. Okay, so that is because you have to import reduce in this case. So from function tools, import reduce. So then your reduce functionality will be imported like this. And you can see the value is 15. It has given 15. Right. We did not import map because it is sort of inbuilt. Right. Map is compared to map and reduce. Map is used more frequently than reduce. Okay, so reduce is kind of moved out of into a different library itself. Okay, right. So let's look at what happened here. So reduce is calling add function on these numbers. And what essentially it is doing is it is reducing all of them into a single number like this. Okay. So how do we represent this? How do we understand how this is working? Right? That is the main thing. It can look something similar to this. So when you're doing a reduce operation, first is it is going to take one. Since it is going to iterate through this numbers list, first comes in, one. Okay. Then and then it takes two because it is and that is it is taking them incrementally one by one. Okay. So in this case, it takes one, then tries to add with something. Since there is nothing, it will just wait for the next iteration. Then you have two. So 1 plus 2, it changes to 1 plus 2. Okay. So then what it does, it adds this like this, changes something like this. And then when your value is incrementing, this changes from 1 plus 2 to 1 plus 2 plus 3. Sorry, plus 2 plus 3. Okay, something similar to this. And then this entire left-hand side is X generally. Okay, so in the first iteration, this will be X. In the second iteration, this will be X. Third iteration, this will be X, and so on. So X plus Y, X plus Y. Okay, then again, this is X plus Y. So this entire thing becomes your X, and it starts reducing. Okay, it starts reducing, and therefore this gives you what? Eventually 15, right? So that is how mostly your reduce works. So that is one of the way to understand how the reduce operation works. So this will be X. Okay. So since there is no other value initially, it will be 0 plus 1. Then next will be 1 plus 2. Then 1 plus 3. Then 1 plus, that is 1 plus 2 plus 3. Then 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. And then so on, right, up to n. Okay, so that is the reduce. So it takes a list and performs an operation where it can reduce everything to a single value, right? As the name itself suggests, it reduces everything into a single value, right? So the technical definition is it is a function which is used to apply a of function of two arguments cumulatively to the items of an iterable, this iterable, whereas it is going to reduce it to a single value like this. Okay, so that is what we mean by a reduce function or a reducer. Generally, this is a concept which is used in many other programming languages also, and it is known by the keyword reduce or the reducer itself, right? So maybe you can research more on that. Since our focus is mostly on Python, you guys can do a deeper research on it. Okay, right. If you have any questions on top of that, we can definitely look into it. All right, fine. You can even subtract or multiply. Yes, Yamini, you can subtract or multiply or do any operation. Basically, it is going to reduce it to a single value. But in this case, map is going to take each of the value, see, each of these values and produce a new list altogether. So the new list will be the one that we have here, like this. So after you apply a map function. Okay. So that's what map does and reducer does. Okay. So let's move on to the next one. Filter. Filter, similar to your map and reduce, it, as the name suggests, it filters the elements of an iterable. Okay. Filters the elements of the iterable. These are the elements generally, right? And it filters them. Okay. And again, it returns an iterable with the elements for which the function returns true. Okay. So this may be a complex definition, but let us simplify it by programming the same. Okay. So let's say that you have a list of numbers, again, similar to this. Okay. Then what I intend to do in this case is I want to extract the even numbers or the odd numbers or multiples of 3, multiples of 9, or anything at all, right? Let's take a simple example for this as well. Let's take the even numbers as the list that we want. Therefore, it is a function. Filter is a function which filters the elements of the iterable, right? So let us add a function and call it as even. Okay, that's the function name, right? And then you can take the iterable, right? Iterable can be your numbers in this case. Okay. And next, we are going to define the actual function. And how simple is this function? As simple as just one line, right? Is even of x, takes in x as the parameter, then returns x mod 2 equal to 0. So what does this return? This is what it is, a conditional statement, right? And a conditional statement either returns true or false. Correct. It just returns a Boolean value by checking the condition. And in this case, filter is going to require some sort of condition, right? So we are going to understand the use cases of filter later. But for now, let us filter out the even numbers from this. Okay, so when we run this again, uh, it is going to give us something like this. Therefore, we need a list. So it returns a list of things. Okay. So in this case, we did not do this. When it came to the reduce function, we did not have any list there because it is not going to return a list. It just returns a single reduced value, right? It can be, I can see that there is a question whether it works with just string or the numeric data. See, it can be with string or numeric data or whatever it is, right? Eventually, it is going to return a single value, right? It could be you know, a matrix multiplication, right? Or division or whatever it can be. Eventually, it will be one single value, right? That one single value can be a string or a numeric value or a single matrix also, right? All right. So what we can do in this case is just pass the list function so that we can get the actual data. So the data is 2 comma 4. Okay. So 2 comma 4 is being displayed. The reason behind it is we have a filter applied. So filter whichever is even. Okay. If it is even, it is going to return only if it is true, right? True as in if the x mod value is 0, then it is going to return the value. If not, it will not, right? That's how the return statement also works and the conditional statement works. And you can see in the even numbers, we have a list which is followed by a filter functionality, which is passing is even function in this case. And the functionality is being applied on numbers, the iterable or the list. Therefore, this list is going to be subjected to is even function and it is going to return a filtered data, correct? A filtered data of even numbers, right? All right. I hope that is clear. So far, what we did with map, reduce, and filters, all of those are having different applications, right? Map is going to iterate through all of them, but it going to iterate and it is going to give out all the data. Generally, map is used to perform the same operation on all of them. Okay, and give a different output. Or it could be like the one that we saw, right? Where you using the map, we are able to format the text. Right? We can use it to multiply something, divide something, right? Convert from one format to the other, right? Convert each of the numbers from integer to decimal, decimal to integer. It can be anything. As long as you are using map and you want the same functionality to be implemented on all of the items in your iterable, you are going to use the map function. And when you are looking for something like this, where you want to reduce the entire list into a single value, you are going to use a reducer. And it works similar to what we saw with a simple example here, right? We took a list of numbers and we were able to see how it reduced the values. Okay, so therefore, that is how the reducer works. And when you want to filter something, see, I told you that we'll talk about the use case, right? So filter can be applied in many of the cases. Take example of Flipkart or Amazon or any other shopping site or your food sites, right? Like your Swiggy or Zomato. So all of these, they contain functionalities where you can filter something, right? Filter, I want to filter, um, you know, shoes. I just want to look at shoes. And I want to look at specifically shoes that are black in color or brown in color, where you are going to apply the condition here, whether the condition is black, brown, blue, or anything. Then yes, color, brand, or it could be the manufacturer, it could be the location, right, where it is coming from, could be the type of delivery, whichever has the fastest delivery, right, whichever has free delivery. All of the conditions can be applied. Only thing is you are going to apply the condition in this, right, like this. Filter products, and you are going to apply your if else conditions. Therefore, this condition is going to return a set of things, a set of the elements from which list? From your initial list. And this initial list is going to contain all your data, right? All the data. And this data can be mixed in nature, right? Mixed as in it may contain the blue shoes, the brown, but if you apply a filter saying that I want the shoes that are just black in color, you will be able to extract, pick from them, and present it in a new list like this. This is going to be your new list of shoes, right? Of your choice of food. I'm just looking for pizzas, right? I'm looking for some sort of sweet dish, right? So you can filter them the way that you want, and the principle behind all of them are same, right? Doesn't matter where you are going to use, the principle will remain the same. You are going to use a filter functionality over there, except that your data is not going to be coming from a list like this. It will be populated from the database. So the data will be populated from database like this. Like you have a DB somewhere, which is going to store all these values, right? So when you make an API call, it is just going to bring them all into the list. So this contains shoe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on up to n number of shoes. So within that, you are going to be able to filter, right? So then there is concept of server side filtering and then client side filtering. So that's for another day, right? So I hope you understood where you can use filters, right? It is having a huge scope. All right. Any questions around filters? All right. Perfect. Anyone else? I don't see many responses. Go on. If you have any doubts, please ask. Get it clarified. DB is nothing but a database. Right now, we are not concerned about it. DB is database, which is going to hold all your data. So this is our data in this case, right? Database is going to be used to hold these data in a proper structured format. Okay. And you can see that we are using some temporary data like this. Okay. When you restart this kernel, when you just stop this kernel, all these value will be lost somewhere. You have to run this again to get the data. are strings written in single or double quotations when we declare? Both of them works. Both of them works, and there is a session on the different types of strings. If you go back, probably around the second or the third class, third day, you'll be able to, uh, you know, understand about strings. Mostly in the second or the third day, where the data is stored in database. See, database is a concept which is going to help you to, uh, you know, with the data storage, right? The data will be stored within your memory itself, the system memory, but it will be stored in a structured format using a database. Okay. So don't worry about it. We are going to learn in the coming classes. The upcoming classes after the Python, we have database itself. Okay, where we are going to connect Python with our database also. All right. Any other questions around this? If not, I'll just touch base on a simple concept that is our import statements, right? So we saw our import statements, um, like this: import math, right? We have done many of these, but there are some variations, with these import statements. For example, yeah, sorry, there was a little issue there. Can you see my screen all right? If yes, just let me know. Okay, fine, fine. All right, we have import math. Similar to that, we used multiples of them with time, date time, and everything. So what this does is it is going to import the entire math module. So with the help of import statement, math is the module, right? Math is our module, which contains multiple functionalities. A module is a collection of multiple functions. Generally, it will have multiple files also. Okay. So when you import something like this, it is going to import the entire module. But for example, you may use just the square root function. Imagine that you just have a requirement to just use the square root function. So instead of importing the entire module, what you can just do is, uh, you know, import a specific item, you know, like math dot square root. This is how we make use of the square root function after importing math, right? Generally, that's how we do it. So math dot square root of 20. So it gives some value. Then you can say 100. Then you can say 1000. You can say 144. No? Anything. But you know that it is going to give you the square root itself. But along with the math, that is the square root functionality, it would have imported other features of the math module as well. To avoid something like this, you can import the same module in this way: from math import square root. Okay. So then what happens? This square root can be used directly. So how do you do that? Square root of anything. See, it is still able to give you the square root of the number, right? So it works, just like the one that we saw, except that it is only importing the square root functionality. Therefore, your application is going to have only the necessary imports, not the unnecessary ones. Okay. So this is an effective and a efficient way of importing the functions or any other variables from a module. Okay, using the from keyword. This is the keyword which is going to help us the particular functionality. Okay. And also we have something called as aliases. Okay. Alias, by definition, it is like giving another name to something, right? Correct. A reference name. Good one, Harshita. And similar to that, you can see this in the importance import statement as well. Okay. For example, we have a library called NumPy. Okay. And using this can be a little, since you are going to use this NumPy a lot of times, what you can do is you can just shorten it. Okay. You can just shorten the value. Okay. That is import NumPy as NP. Okay. So using this, you will be able to use this as NP anywhere in your program. So let's just create a simple array within the NumPy. So ARR is NP dot, there is a method called array. That is, it converts this normal list into an array, that is a NumPy array. Okay, so when you do this, your array is going to contain an actual NumPy array, right? I just did that using the alias, that is NP. Okay, so when I can use NumPy also. Okay, but the thing is, I may be using this NumPy functionality many more times. And writing NumPy every time may be a little irritating for me, right? It depends on how you code, right? If you have a lot of them, lot of the same functionality, you'll be repeating that. So therefore, in order to make my life easier, I can just use an alias like this. Therefore, instead of calling it as numpy.array, I'll just call it as np.array. Therefore, it still works the same. Okay. So it is just to make the module names shorter and more readable, if you may. Okay. So that's what it is. Right. All right. So you can, I'll just talk a little bit about NumPy, not too much in depth, since it is not part of this. And I'm pretty sure people might be interested in understanding NumPy. So NumPy is a library which is going to help us to deal with all the numerical computation. Okay. So the numerical computation within our Python programming. All right. So that is what NumPy helps us with. Therefore, you can use NumPy in order to do all these complex calculations. It could be generally we deal with a lot of matrices, right? So it helps us to deal all these complex operations with the use of NumPy. Okay. So maybe what we can do is we can create a two-dimensional array, right? Array of two dimension. How can you create? NP dot array of create two of them. So within a list, you are going to add one more list, and then if you look at this value, it creates an array of two dimensions. That is, it has your rows and columns both. So we have learned the same thing with our list concept also, right? But this is with respect to the NumPy. Okay, and you will be able to do all the NumPy or using the data frames or the pandas module or anything generally. That is only with the knowledge of Python. Guys, if you do not focus on this, you'll not be able to do that. So therefore, these are all the basics. Okay, right. So that's about how you are going to be able to create a two-dimensional array. Let's say that you want to create an array full of zeros of a specific size. Zeros. So np dot zeros, or I'll just use the tuple in this case, 3 comma 4. And your zeros array is going to look something like this. Okay. Similarly, you can have an array of ones, and so on. So with the help of this, you'll be able to do some complex numerical computations. Okay. They have many other functionalities within them, but our focus is majorly on the Python part. All right. So let's focus on that. And that is mostly it for today's class. And we will be learning more concepts within the Python. That is, the dir function, the global and local functions, reload functions, the sys or the sys module, and so on, right? So eventually we will be moving towards database after clearing all the basics within Python. And we also are going to learn how to deal with files. We have dealt with some data, like your numerical data, the string and list and dictionaries and so on, right? What if the data was in some file? So how do you read them? How do you extract them? So all of them we are going to be learning in the upcoming classes. Okay, it's going to get more interesting, and you are going to get closer towards learning Python much better. Okay, and you'll be able to deal with the problems in Python mostly by yourself, right? So the basics are going to help you with that. Right. So that's pretty much it for today. If you have any questions, please ask away, and I'll be happy to answer. Can we use alias for every libraries? Yes, you can use them as long as you know how comfortable you are with it. There are no IPYNB files uploaded in LMS. Okay, Amar, are you on the call? I guess it is
Yeah,
Chandana.
Hemant.
So,
Yeah.
hi. Chandana, I can see that some of the students are asking for the files. I've shared them over the email to the team. Can you please have them uploaded in case it is not there already?
Yeah, we'll upload by tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, okay, right.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we wind up today's class? And also, the notebook for today's class will be shared. Okay, don't worry about it. So, use of a decorator. So, decorator, as the name suggests, I mean, the definition of a decorator is some functionality which can be used to, you know, change the behavior, right? You may have one function. So, with the same function, you can change the behavior of that function depending on how you want to use, right? So, we saw with a few examples. So, we have a decorator, right? So, you can write any custom function, have a wrapper function within it. Wrapper is nothing but the inside function. Okay, for your outside function, you'll have an inside function, and your outer function is going to pass the function whichever is defined with the decorator. Along with the decorator, it will pass that function. Therefore, anything that you do within your inside function or the wrapper function can have direct impact on the custom function, that is your other functions that have been written in your code. Okay, so decorator is going to help you modify the behavior of them. Okay, so one of the practical uses is, as I said, this can be for logging, right? So this message was sent at so and so time by this particular user, right? It can also save the user ID. Then you will know that some action has been performed by this user. So in this case, we sent a message. So the same user can do other operations in your, within your application. Like they can delete some entry, they can add some entry. Okay. They can change the settings. So for all of them, if you maintain some logging, then what happens? You will be able to get a proper audit flow. Okay. Therefore, in that case, you can also perform security audits. If there is an attack on your system, this is one of the examples that I talked about earlier. If you have an attack on your system, you will be able to know through which user this attack was performed and from where it came from, right? You can take in the location of them, you can take in the timestamp, including the latitude, longitude, and so on, right? The possibilities are endless. When you are writing a function, it can be literally anything, correct? So, and decorator is just one of the ways to modify them, slightly modify the response if you want. Okay. Next question. Where we get the notes in LMS, sir? Okay, I think that's a question for the team out there. Um, Maybe Chandana can help you understand. By the way, it's if you just look at the previous recordings, all the directions are there. I would suggest that go through the first video that contains all the basic information that you need. Okay. Yes, to answer your question, where can you find the notes? Where can you find the content, whatever it is in the LMS. Okay, I can see that there is an error which has been posted. It says no module named NumPy. So for this, you'll have to do a pip install NumPy. Okay, so pip install is going to help you with the installation of packages. Okay, just go to your command line and just do a pip install. So I'll paste the code within the chat box so that you guys can execute that. Pip install NumPy, which is going to help you install the library. Generally, that is not something which is bundled with Python. It is an external uh, library. Okay. I can see there is a question, why send message also runs when we call only my function? Okay. We are not exactly calling just my function. We are calling this also, right? So there is a function call. That's the reason. Okay. The SQL sessions are going to start from the coming week. Although we will be doing a little bit of a touch base there in the in the final class, where we are going to learn some SQLite as well. What is the basic difference between NumPy and Reduce? NumPy is a library, and Reduce is just a functionality. Okay. Both are not exactly something that you can compare, right? It is not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and elephants, where elephant is NumPy and Reduce is like apples. NumPy is a very vast library. That's not going to be covered in this course exactly, but I just gave you a brief understanding how to use different libraries. That's it. Okay. Chandana, the students are asking which email should we drop. Maybe they are confused about the your message, which says please drop an email to edl@xlr.com. Can you
Yeah,
please let them
Hemant.
know?
Actually, for the LMS queries and notes queries, please drop an email to edl@xlr.com. So my team will connect you with you. Okay, guys,
Okay.
you got my
So
point.
just take the email edl@xlr.com. If you have any issues accessing the files or anything else, they will be getting back to you. No, no, you don't have to share your email here. Just send the email to edl@xlr.com.
You have to send your problem in email for this email. Okay.
If you have any queries regarding the files, generally your LMS part. Not regarding the classes though, because if you have any questions, you'll have to address it over here in the class itself. Okay, I don't think we have any more questions. We can wind it up.
Okay. Sai was
Yeah.
asking the digital marketing program certificates. By tomorrow, we will send it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hemant, we'll wind up the session.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for joining. We are going to be learning more of Python in the upcoming classes, just like we always do. And come back with a fresh mind. Practice whatever we have done, and you will get there. Okay, don't worry about it. It may be a little confusing in the beginning. As long as you are willing to try it out by yourself, it is going to get easier, much easier. Okay, and try to catch up with the classes. Join on time, and also uh, ensure that you are practicing them regularly. Okay, if we finish a concept today, see if you can do it before the class tomorrow. Okay, that's the least that you can do. Okay, right. So try it out, and it actually gets easier. Trust me. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you, Hemant.